Hi, and welcome to my 2023 reading wrap-up. I was heavily inspired by this video by Destiny and Sorara Colley. It was Destiny's video idea first. She made a end of the year book tag, but I'm making it my 2023 reading wrap-up instead. I took inspiration of my own things I wanted to talk about, what I've read this year, and I also took some of my ideas of hers, so it's like a good mix of both. So let's just get started. So this year, I set a goal for reading 20 books this year, and I exceeded it with 7 books. So I read 27 books. I might be able to squeeze an extra book in because there's still a couple of weeks left of the year, but I'm not pressuring it. I feel like 27 books is a really good number. I feel like for next year, I want to try and read maybe 30 books. I'm a pretty slow reader, but I do feel like I could reach that goal because now I know more what I like of books. So I think I'm going to set it for 30 books next year, but I would love to read 50. I know that's a bit insane, but I feel like I could do it. So one of my favorite features of Storygraph is seeing all the graphs. It's Storygraph, so obviously. I switched from Goodreads to Storygraph. Zero regrets. I love Storygraph. And one of the things they have on there is reading moods. Can you guess what mood I've read the most? Just take a second. It's obviously dark. No surprise there. I love dark and scary books. Can you guess my second one? It's kind of similar. Oh, you guessed right. It's tense. It's tense. So obviously I read tense books. I cannot read a fluffy romance. Shout out to all you girlies who can, or boys, or whoever you identify as. I cannot. And I mean, I guess emotional can be romance. Obviously, they can be heavily romance, but what can I say? I'm an emotional girly. Also, a feature I really liked was the most read genre. I feel like it's so obvious. It's dystopian. And I will say what's contributed to this the most is because I read pretty much the entire Shadow Me series this year. And if you want my thoughts about Shadow Me, I like it. I think it's worth reading. But each individual book, not so great. But I still love the series. And I feel like you should read it just for Kenji and Aaron Warner. Yeah. And obviously because I am a Kindle girly for freaking life, we're not gonna talk about this book that's on the cover. We're not going to talk about it. I'm a big Kindle girly. I recommend a Kindle for pretty much anybody. I feel like they are a great investment if you are a new reader, but I also think they are amazing if you've been reading since you were like 2 years old. I love my Kindle. And I also have like a whole video on my channel. I've made 2 videos about why I love my Kindle. I made 3 videos about how much I love a Kindle, and I will link them down below if you're curious because those are some of my favorite videos I've ever filmed. So actually quite funny as I'm talking about how I'm a Kindle girly, I have read 52% digital and 48% paper, which was quite surprising to me. I thought it would be higher. Like, I thought it would be maybe like 60-70% e-reading, but apparently not. All right, so now we are done with the more boring stuff, like the more statistics I love, but not everybody loves them. Let's start with disappointments. I feel like this is a fan favorite when it comes to hate. Everybody hates this book. I actually have quite a funny story. My friend I met on TikTok, Marie, I will have her handle linked in the description if you want to go check her out. I love her. She's amazing. We bonded over her. She loves this book. I absolutely hate it. And I cannot tell you why because I don't remember what happens in this book. I just remember I hate it. And that's really it. If you love this book, great. If you hate this book, also great. We all have different tastes, so that's fine. That's cool. I just don't think this is worth your read. But I did read it quite quick at the start of the year. I think this was the first book I read in the year. I think I read it at the end of December and start of January. I think I finished it on January 3rd, I think. Maybe you're gonna hate me. Or maybe people agree with this. Meet Me at the Lake. I have read both of Carly Fortune's books. I have read Meet Me at the Lake, obviously, and I have read Every Summer After. Out of the 2, I think Every Summer After is slightly better and it's cuter because I do really like the trope friends to lovers in there. But I also learned that there is like a really problematic trope in there, which made me like dislike the book. Like, I feel like it's cute and I feel like her books come out at like a perfect time, like around summertime, and they definitely pass the vibes on the summer. And I feel like if I didn't live near a lake, this would have just been 0 stars. Out the window. Trash. Like, I am not a romance girly. I will never be a romance girly, especially when it's like this fluffy romance. And it's just like, her covers. Like, just look at this beautiful, beautiful cover. And Every Summer After is beautiful too. I literally want the cover just because it's so pretty. Like, if I'm going to London soon, if I can buy it in the works, I'm probably gonna buy the book just because the cover is so cute. Do I like the book? No. The covers, like, she slays with the covers. But yeah, definitely the reason I don't like this book is like, I feel like nothing happens. at all. And as I said, there's also a problematic trope in here. And one way I know if I don't like a book is if like this my leg, I just like, keep sitting like this. I really don't want to read this book. That's like a huge red flag for me to know that I don't like a book. She's also coming out with another book in 2024, I think around May, that is called The Summer Will Be. I will not do it. Watch me do it just to feel like to be an even bigger hater. Maybe the third book is good. Maybe I'm just gonna read it for the summer vibe. Please do not hate me for this. Iron Flame. You know, I can't criticize it yet because I actually haven't finished it yet, but I just like the only reason I'm like continuing to read this is because I'm listening to it in audiobook version. I think it's fine in audiobook, but like it's so fucking long. Like, bruh. Like, I'm at 75% in the audiobook, and I also have it on Kindle, which, like, I 100% regret buying it on my Kindle, because, like, I do not want to read this. I cannot do it. I fucking hate it. I can't do it. And, like, with my 3 friends on TikTok, Marie, Pernille, and Sol, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't do it. When the third book comes out, I'm not gonna read it. I can't do it. I also saw that there was one called Discovery of a New Author, and I really thought that was an interesting idea. I read Unported by Eliza Clark. This book is so fucking unhinged. It is so funny. If you want to read a book about, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube, but male, you're probably gonna love this book. The reason why I picked this book out was simply because the main character is a photographer, and I'm also a photographer. So, and she takes like explicit photos of men, which is super interesting. Love how there's like 2 book tabs in here. I think that's kind of funny. If you just want to read about a really unhinged woman on drugs, this is the book for you. It's so funny. And she wrote a different book, Eliza Clark, that I am so interested in reading, just because this was so unhinged. So I'm excited to see what her other book is going to be about, and I just want to read. I just want her to come out with more books. I also included a weird book in here because if you know me, I will read any weird book any day. I actually have 2 now. I actually just thought about one. I read Unhinged. If you want smut and adore and weirdness and funny, maybe give this one a try. I'm also interested in reading her other book. I think it's called Squeak, which is about 2 balloon animals. Very interesting concept. Unhinged was such a funny book. Do I recommend it to everybody? No, but it was just hilarious. So next up on my weird books, I want to include, this is an author. I want to read more of his work because the first book I read, things have gotten worse since we last spoke. This was such an interesting book. If you like weird horror books that's disturbing and that's also short, it was 102 pages, I believe. Good read. You can read this in like one day, in like one sitting if you want. I can't read 100 pages in one sitting, but I could definitely read this in one sitting without any problem. It was a really, really weird book. It's hard to explain. It's like about these 2 women who have like the entire plot is like written in like text format, so like they're only chatting online, and they have a sub relationship, but it's like really weird. I just want to read more of his work just because it sounds incredibly interesting. Alright, so I know this is a bit of a weird category because I've actually only read 1 short story collection this year, but I still really, really wanted to talk about it. So we have Cursed Bunny. Now, I rated this book 3 stars. And you're probably wondering, why are you talking about this book if it's a book you like? A lot of the chapters, this is a Korean author, a lot of them touches on a lot of political issues in Korea and just in general Korean culture. And since I am not Korean and I don't live in Korea, I have not experienced a lot of these things that are mentioned in this book. So a lot of them I didn't understand fully because it's not something I've ever struggled with or is currently struggling with. Now my cat's here. No, please don't bite it. He's such a cutie. Oh my god. But if we take the first story alone, it's a 5-star read for sure. Now, the first book, if you're like sensitive to like, I don't even know, like this, you can like skip to this timeline if you don't want to hear about this because it's quite gross. The first story, the first line is so unhinged. I The first book is called The Head, and it literally says on the first page, she was about to flush the toilet. Mother. She looked back, there was a head popping out of the toilet calling for her. Mother. The fuck? Like, that was so intriguing to me, like, what? So it's like a story about a woman or person being like in her toilet that's like being created by this. It's just like ew, but it's also like what? And the ending was like, I did not expect that ending. Did I like some of the other stories? Yeah, sure, but I honestly don't remember them. I only really remember the first two, I think, which were amazing. I think it's worth a read if you want like a really weird story. I think the cover matches perfectly the inside of the book. And now we are on to favorites of the year. I obviously have more than 3, but I just wanted to include these 3. And the last one is my favorite book I've ever read. So I read the second last novella in the Shadow Me series, and it is so fucking funny. I love Reveal Me so much, and I think it's literally because it's from Kenji's perspective only. I know it's like a super random book, but when I had finished Defy Me, this is Shadow Me spoilers. Skip to this timeline if you don't want Shadow Me spoilers. Defy Me ended with Juliet and Warner being like, oh my god, we're married! Or we're getting married. He proposes. And then the last book, Imagine Me? I think so. Starts with like them being happy and excited. And I was just like, I'm not in the mood to read this right now. My god. I just couldn't be bothered because Defy Me is slow. It's slow as fuck. Defy Me, I hate it. I hate Defy Me. And it was just, ugh. But then I read Real Me. And I was like, now I actually want to read the book. So I definitely feel like the novellas are worth reading, even though I've only read Reveal Me, because I was like, I want to read the last book, but maybe I should read the novella, so like it will be a bit more fun. I do actually want to read the novellas, but I feel like they might be confusing now, because like I didn't read them in the correct order, but I do want to read Believe Me. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Reveal Me. Next up, we have The Memory Police. This is a book that was recommended by my friend Amy, and also by Jack Edwards on YouTube. This is such a hard book to explain, but I'll try my best. So we never get the name of the narrator we are following, besides we know it's a woman because they say she a lot. She lives on this remote island in the middle of nowhere in Japan, where things just randomly disappear. This can be flowers, pots, pans, anything you can think of. Flowers, anything. And this memory police has to go and get rid of it. So for example, roses, they have to like throw it all in the ocean. The people who live there are like super oblivious to it. And it's very poetic, and like she's a writer, and like her editor's like in trouble, so like she's gonna like try and save her editor. It's just a beautiful poetic book, and I feel like everybody should read this book when they get the chance to it. If you want like a more complicated, dense book, this is good. If I could give you any book recommendation and you would read it, it would be Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. First of all, Emma Watson have read this book. He has also written A Person Being a Wallflower, which I'm unsure if I'm ever gonna read. I love the movie. Well, the movie is really sad, but I feel like maybe I should read the book just so like I cannot describe how great this book is. But I'll also be honest and say I don't remember this book that well. The book is about this boy named Christopher who's like 7 years old. He gets like lost in the woods for like 5 days, and then he comes back like fairly normal, but like obviously he's not. He's fucked in the head, and he starts hearing voices, and this voice tells him to build like a tree house in the woods before Christmas, or like something terrible is gonna happen. And there's so much character development, and like everything about this book is amazing. This is like my only 6-star read, and I really hope I can find more 6-star reads just like this one. Truly love this book so much. This is also not my first copy, this is my second copy of the book. I also have like kind of a funny story about how I got this book, because I was not meant to get this. When I had a boyfriend from the UK, my ex now, and we were in the bookstore, and the other cover of this, I'll have it on screen just so you can get what I was looking at. This beautiful book cover, and I was like, oh my god. I go to grab it, and it's like, and I hold it, and I'm like, no, not gonna read that. And my ex was like, yeah, not with that attitude. And I immediately grabbed it, and I was like, fuck you. I'm gonna read it now, just because you said that. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'm not gonna say his name. I also wanted to mention an overhyped book. I'm so sorry again. Fourth Wing. And the worst part is, I have like heavily annotated this book. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong about Fourth Wing. I think Fourth Wing is an absolutely fine book, but it's overhyped. I think this book is amazing if you want to start reading fantasy. I think it's definitely hits some mark on that, and it's a lot of people's favorite. But for me, it kind of hit bland. Like, this one's definitely better than Iron Flame. I think Fourth Wing is a good introduction book, and maybe I'm gonna be surprised about Iron Flame at the end. But I just feel like Fourth Wing was just overhyped for what it is. It's a fine book. It's just nothing special. Also, for the last bit, because my battery is about to die, I also did want to talk about some books I am very excited to read and I really want to read 2024. I obviously want to read more Eric LaRocca this year. I want to read way more horror. I want to read my first Stephen King book. I have his book Fairy Tale, which I'm very interested in reading. I also want this year to be the year I read Twilight, because I got all the books and I just want to read Twilight because I love angsty things. I love angsty books. I also really want to read Divergent. The last two books in the Legends series, because, you know, should finish series. I also want to read the whole Agatha series. I also want to read Throne of Glass. I want to read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Red Queen, and I want to start reading my first classic, maybe a couple of classics. I know those are like pretty big goals, but I feel like that's okay. So that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really, really, really hope you enjoyed that. If you did, maybe you want to like the video, comment down below what you thought of the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more book-related content, photography-related content. Follow my Instagram account where I post all the cool pictures of my beautiful pictures. Please remember to be kind to yourself and others. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!